Okay then folks, thank you for tuning in to my third video in the series. This one is about the leaky gut syndrome. Now about 67% or 2/3 of the US population suffer from this complaint, so if you do, you're not alone, but I think you're going to find some really interesting information in this video. So please enjoy. And let's get started on the leaky gut video. Obviously, a healthy gut is something that you want to maintain, preferably at all costs. In my previous video on the body weight set point, we talked about the gut. We talked about the gut having its own brain, and that brain actually communicating with the brain in your head to make sure all the right messages are being sent around the body as a result of the foods that you're digesting. So the small intestine, or that part of the gut, is where the body starts to digest all your food. So this is where the nutrients are broken down out of the food particles, and then they're released through the wall of the gut into the bloodstream, so they can be ferried around the body to all the organs that need it. The gut also acts as a satiety sensor. It tells the rest of the body that it's got enough food for now, everything's looking good, don't bother to eat anymore. Okay, so when the gut is working perfectly well, the semi-permeable wall of the gut, which just happens to be 1 cell thick, acts as a barrier, if you will, to the bloodstream. The food then, or at least the broken down digestive food, which will be the nutrients that your body's looking for, actually get released through this semi-permeable gut wall and get into the bloodstream, where they're ferried off to all the various parts of the body that need them. The rest of the food is just eliminated and out of the system altogether. So the lining of the small intestine sort of works as a security wall, if you will. It's a little bit like the skin in a way, because as you know, the skin basically is a barrier to the outside world. It keeps the fluids and tissue and everything on the inside, and then it keeps all the bacteria and viruses and bad guys on the outside. In a similar way, the lining of the gut actually acts as a barrier. So it's keeping the digested food, which in this case is the bad guys, away from the bloodstream, where they would appear on the other side as good guys. Now then, the semi-permeable nature of the gut wall is fine when it's working. However, if you've been eating the wrong kind of foods, in particular the standard American diet, the type of foods that you're eating can have the effect of punching holes in that gut lining. I mean, it's basically a structural breakdown, and the components are actually eating into the gut wall. Well, once you have this breakdown, if you will, and you've got these holes in the gut lining, then all sorts of undigested food, which would be considered as toxins in the body, start to get released into the bloodstream and cause all sorts of bad things to go on in your body. And this triggers an immune response, so the immune system kicks in, which is part of the stress side of the body, which is also not a good thing. And so this immune system now is working really hard to try and neutralize all these toxins that have been coming through the wall of the gut, now that it's got some structural problems. So eventually, if this continues for some reasonable period of time, say a decade or two, then you will end up with systemic inflammation. And I've talked about systemic inflammation in other videos and the sort of metabolic diseases it can cause. So obviously you really don't want to be suffering from this leaky gut syndrome, because it's going to cause you all sorts of problems. Now you may be asking, well, why is the gut wall only 1 cell thick? Well, the way I look at it is like this. Back in the day, millions of years ago, when we were hunter-gatherers and we were working on the basis of eating what we caught, no processed foods whatsoever, perhaps 1 cell thick was enough for the gut wall, because it was designed to deal with the kind of food that we were eating at that time. In more recent times, the agricultural revolution, which took place about 10,000 years ago, and the standard American diet that was really introduced into our society, and most of Western society for that matter, about 50 to 70 years ago, are the main causes of what is in fact the leaky gut syndrome. So the fact that it's only one cell thick might have been good enough a million years ago, but today it's clearly not getting the job done. So, well, why didn't we evolve over this period of time to maybe thicken up the security wall there so it wouldn't cause these problems? Well, the agricultural revolution and the standard American diet, from a historical perspective at least, are very recent happenings, and it takes thousands of generations for the DNA in our system to evolve to the point where we make changes in our body based on the type of influences that we're receiving, let's say. So in my opinion, that's why we haven't got to a point in our evolution today where our gut wall has got to be more than one cell thick, because we haven't been at it long enough to actually get that evolution into place. So another problem with this leaky gut is that it produces abdominal fat, because all of this toxins and things going into the bloodstream tends to end up building up a fat layer around your liver and other organs in that area of your body. Perhaps worse than that is that fat actually acts as a sponge, and so all these toxins that are coming through the gut wall are actually being absorbed by that fat and stored. So you've got a sort of a base of toxins being stored around some of your more vital organs, which again obviously is not good for you at all. And again, this is what inflammation does to you. So the theme in this video, as was the case I think in the last two videos, the one on insulin and the one on the body weight set point, basically are reflections of the standard American diet that we're eating today, or at least most of society is eating here today. So the good news is that this can all be reversed. You can change your metabolic system so that you don't have all these insulin spikes, as we talked about in the first video. You can actually change your body weight set point by eating the right foods, and also you can actually stop your gut leaking. You can eat in such a way that the gut wall gets repaired and you no longer have to worry about leaky gut and all the issues that come from that. So the good news is that basically we're able to reverse these things, and the bad news, I guess, is if you continue to eat the standard American diet, then you can expect these things to get worse.